Ready.
Damn, this
also
is a good
my
episode.
birthday.
I really like
my
this.
birthday present to you is not singing a monotone "Happy Birthday" on air. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I have control of the mute.
I'll fight you for it.
Right? Emily, in New York, you've been waiting this entire time. Thank you. You're live with Eric and Thomas. How's it going?
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
I was just calling in because I've been kind of conflicted lately. When it comes to what I have.
You're getting really quiet. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've just been conflicted lately with what I believe. I'm not sure what I believe. I know that I don't think that the God of the Bible is moral. And I've learned that over the years of growing up in like a Baptist church as a child and hearing a lot of their teachings about women and children and just their outlook on the world. I don't agree that it's moral, but at the same time, I still have a lot of fear that it's true. So I'm kind of stuck between like not liking it and then trying to figure out if I really believe it or not.
You sound like a religious anti-theist.
Yeah.
Like I know atheists who they're like, oh man, I don't believe this and I don't have evidence for it, but I really wish it were true. It'd be nice if it were true. And then I know religious people who are like, man, I hate this. I wish it wasn't true. But you know, they're not sure where they stand. And sometimes that, you know, they're still in your shoes where you still believe it.
Yeah. Hey, Emily, I want to ask you a question. So you said you were raised in a Baptist house?
Yes.
And you're having doubts?
Yeah.
So there's this notion called anomie, right? That when you think that you've got it down, you know, morally, you've got this perfect morality that's handed down, and when you learn that it's not, right? When you learn that we're in this nasty, complex, scary, random, chaotic world, right? It feels like the floor just drops out from under you, right? You don't have this underpinning, and it is fucking terrifying. And I know I've been there. Thomas, would you say you've been there too?
Yeah, I went through, and I know many people go through what's called post-deconversion depression, where you've just realized you don't believe in any of it, or you realize that something's off about it, and then you have to really work hard to rebuild your worldview and to figure out where you stand on a lot of this stuff. And it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of learning.
Yeah. I think I can tell you, I know this is anecdotal, but in my experience talking to atheists, it took a long time. There's no right or wrong way. And there's no punishment for you if you get it wrong. You know, it sounds like you're questioning. It sounds like you're putting everything up on the chopping block and you really care about whether or not it's true. And as you explore it, I just want you to know that it's okay. You know, my first thought is to hug you because I wish somebody was there to hug me when I was there. You know, I mean, it can be really rough. So I just wanted to tell you that it's going to be okay. You know, if you determine that you are a Christian and you go back into it, that's okay. You know, if you want to explore whether or not it's true and really kind of work that epistemology and come to the same conclusion that we came to, that's okay too, right? You're still going to have the same tastes. You know, you're still going to like the same things. You're still going to love the people that you love.
Emily, it sounds to me like you care about the truth. And you want to know what's true. You want to follow what's true. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah. I just think it's not that I don't even know if I really do believe it at this point. It's the only thing that makes me think I believe it is the fear I feel when thinking about saying that I'm a non-believer or speaking against Christ. But at the same time, like, am I rational?
What are you afraid of?
Am I rational? I'm afraid of it being true and going to hell. or God.
Well, I know that I can tell you that those fears of hell, right, is something that, especially if you're raised in it, is ground in. Like, it is baked into you when you are raised in the church, right? And fear of hell doesn't go away. It sticks. It is hard to get past. And I know plenty of atheists who've had hell dreams, nightmares, about it long after they stopped believing because it was so deeply ingrained in them, right? I'm really, really glad that you're separating those things. It sounds like you're recognizing that fear does not make it true, right? But I just kind of wanted to chime in there. You're not alone. A lot of people go through it.
Yeah.
You've come to the right place, though, and it's okay. It's okay to have these doubts in this question. And I would ask you, if God is all loving, and if he really cares about you and loves you, would he not be more understanding of honest, open inquiry like you're doing and really wanting to know the truth and to search than of someone who simply believed in it because they wanted reward or they were afraid of punishment? It sounds like one is kind of a sellout, one is a bit of a cop-out, and the other is genuine, honest inquiry.
I mean, it makes sense. But then again, in the religion I grew up in, God was loving, but God was also an angry, jealous God. So at the same time, it's like, okay, how far is too far when it comes to questioning? And
do you lose sleep over any other hell in any other religion?
No.
I put together a video I think really might help you, and I did it for people in exactly your shoes because I've been there. I've come out of this, and to me, when I was religious, that was the last straw. I held on even after I had so much evidence that the Bible was written by men and that it was man-made and that there were inconsistencies. And even after I no longer believed that any of it was true, I still was afraid of hell. And as soon as I learned the history of hell, and as soon as I realized how it had evolved over time and how it had come from other different myths and how even the Jews who wrote the Old Testament, they don't have a notion of hell the same way that we do. There's two different references. One is to Sheol and one is to Gehenna. And if you look at like the oldest references, it's basically like an underworld. And then it's a place of cleansing and it's a place of refining before you go to heaven, almost like a purgatory. And if that's the case and people say, oh, the Old Testament is true, like Christians believe that the Old Testament is true, and yet it wasn't until Jesus that all of a sudden you start having this introduction of an eternal hell. And there's in Revelation, you have these notions, and then you start seeing it evolve into, you read the Divine Comedy in Dante's Inferno, and you start seeing this notion of hell that fits with the, this horrific, these fear tactics, this fire and brimstone, gloom and doom, sinners in the hands of an angry God style to get people to flock to religion out of fear. That's a relatively new thing, like in the last few hundred years, that has really started being pushed and come up. But it's evolved. It's evolved like everything in religion. If you check out my video on that, if you just type in Holy Kool-Aid, how to get over the fear of hell, I think that might help you.
Okay.
And if you want a biblical permission to explore, I've got a few for you, if that helps. Look at Saul, right? Saul was on the road to Damascus and had this miracle happen to him, right? This miracle on the road to Damascus where he had the scales put over his eyes. And after going through this event, he changed his name to Paul. He became the Apostle Paul, right? God cared enough to do something to him, right, in that event, right? When Jesus came back, doubting Thomas, sorry, I'm looking at Thomas, doubting Thomas didn't believe it, right? And Jesus walked up to him and had Thomas feel the wounds, right, and touch him and explore that his body had gone through that, right? There's the story of the prodigal son, right? There are plenty of places in the Bible that if you're really worried about it, about exploring, honestly, if God cares enough about Thomas, if God cares enough about Paul, if God cares enough about, in the story of the prodigal son, then God would care enough about you to understand that you can ask, you can explore, right? And if God loved Thomas more, if God loved Paul more, that he would intervene for these people to believe, but doesn't for anybody else, right? I don't need to tell you, I'm sure, about all of the people who die suffering, praying to a God who's never going to be there, right? All of the people who die of sickness and starvation, of disease, people who spend lives being tormented, tortured, or brutalized, people who live short lives, children that die in the cradle, right? All of these purposeless things that we see, right? If God cares more about Thomas than he does about these children, then I don't think that God should be cared about. On top of that, I don't think that God should be feared.
I don't think that that's evidence that God even exists.
Yeah.
To be honest, people die at the same rates in every religion.
So
yeah, and I mean, that's been one of the big things with me is my family, my sister and my mother are still very involved in the church.
As are ours.
And
yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
I said as are ours. My parents still do missions work, and pretty much all my family is very religious and very involved in the community. It can be hard.
Yeah,
It can be really hard.
Mm-hmm. And they still very much believe, because they know people who have been cured of cancer, and they, have written, this one family has written, CDs, gospel CDs about how the doctors told, this girl that they couldn't believe that her cancer was gone because basically she went into remission and didn't have a lot of, medical treatment, and they use that to say, that's proof of God. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who don't get that have been prayed for, or, and they say, it's just God's will then. It's like, okay, well, if it's God's will, then what's the point of praying?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like God either says yes, no, or wait, and that's exactly the same response you get to praying to, I've heard, a jug of milk. I like to say if I pray to a can of beans.
But Emily,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it a bunch of times, and so I want to make sure that I say that in the live chat, they want you to go to Facebook. They want you to find us on social media because they want to talk to you. You have a community that's here for you if you want it. So
not alone.
You can find us on, the Atheist Experience Facebook, Talk Heathen, our live discussion group. We're on Discord, the Atheist Community of Austin. We have a private group now. It's not up on this. We've got to adjust it. But there is a private ACA Productions that you can apply to if you're worried about family seeing you join a group like that, right? That people are able to be there for each other. And that's what we're trying to help with. So I really hope you take advantage of it. We've got a couple things up on the screen. It doesn't matter. But if you would like to reach out, I see a whole bunch of people who want to reach back to you.
Okay, sure.
All right.
We've been through a very similar process, and it can be really hard, but you're not alone. By any stretch of the imagination, you're not alone.
Thanks.
Yep. All right. You take care, Emily. I hope to hear from you again. We want updates. We want to find out what happened. This is a saga now. We want to know. So keep us updated, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So we've got 3 more callers on the line.
That